What is cracking? It is your girl, Lillian Francis. Today we're talking about something very important. Panning. Panning is something that is pretty fucking easy and makes a world of difference. So today I'm going to be teaching you guys about some different panning techniques and also give you guys a framework to approach panning. So for every single sound you encounter in your project, you have a good idea of where exactly you should put it. I didn't make a one sheet on panning, so if you want the cliff notes or you just want to have all of my notes in one beautifully organized page for you to look at later, go ahead and download that linked below. All right, so when we are mixing, we are essentially giving every single sound its own space in the stereo field. And we have 8 different dimensions we can work with: left and right, up and down, front and back, and narrow and wide. And every sound is going to be placed somewhere in that side down, up, front, spectrum, okay? Panning is our left to right spectrum. We have this gorgeous 180-degree sweeping view that we can put all of our sounds in. So there's really no reason why 2 sounds should be in the same place at all. But where do we put these sounds? Well, that's what we're going to talk about first. There are 3 main things we want to think about when we are deciding where to put a sound in our 180-degree spectrum. The first thing we want to think about is balance. We want to create a balanced song. We don't want all of our high frequencies on one side and all of our low frequencies on the other, right? We want to balance out our song so we have an approximately equal amount of high frequencies and low frequencies spread out throughout our song. So what does this mean? This means that when we are panning something, say 25 to the left, we should also be thinking about what we can pan 25 to the right that's going to complement that sound. What's something in a similar frequency range that we can balance it out with, right? So if I have a guitar on one side, maybe I want to place another guitar on the other side or piano on the other side. I'm never throwing any sound that's very glaringly obvious over to one side without balancing out with something, because we are creating a balance in our track. 2, the most important things go down the middle. We naturally pay attention to what's in front of us. Our songs may sometimes have a lot going on in them, but we don't want the audience to be thinking about, what's that? Oh, what's that? And bopping all around. No, we have to tell them what we want them to listen to, okay? So every song is gonna have a different priority list, right? What are the most important sounds in the song? But typically, kick, snare, bass, and lead vocals. These are typically the 4 most important things, and they are going to be down the center. And then on the opposite of that, the more auxiliary a sound or the less important a sound, the further we can push it out to the sides. And 3, we want to keep our lower sounds closer to the center and push our higher frequency sounds out further. We can think of our song kind of like a tree. So first we have our trunk, which is going to be our lower frequencies. These are grounding our song. They're rooting us down. They're giving us stability. If you had your bass way off yonder on the side, or 2 very low things down here, it can be a little unsettling for the listener to have low stuff out to the side. So the lower frequency, typically the closer to the center it is. And then as we go up our tree and we start branching off and the frequencies start getting higher, we start expanding and pushing them out to the side. And then you can think of the leaves on the tree as kind of like the airy sounds that we have, and we can push those way out to the side. And the final thing, this is a kind of number 4, but we want to think about movement. So does our sound move or does it stay stagnant? What's its flow, right? We don't want everything moving, because if everything in our song was moving, that'd be really confusing. But to have some amount of movement for certain sounds can really make a song interesting. All right, now that we've talked about the conceptual kind of stuff and how we approach thinking about where we want to put every sound, let's talk about the tools that we have to do that. So the 3 main tools that we're going to talk about today are pan pots, automation, and auto pan, with a little bit of random pan mixed in there as well. Okie dokie, now I think we are ready to dive right in. Splash! Splashing makes me thirsty. All right, fam, welcome to my Proj. All right, so the first one I talked about is pan pots, and this one is pretty easy. Every single track is gonna have a pan pot, which is these little guys over here in Ableton, where you can decide if you wanna hear it on the left or the right side. So let's go ahead and look at an example of using these pan pots. Vocals. Obviously, I don't want all my vocals down the center. I want this beautiful cream cheese spread of vocals just throughout my entire song. So for my verse, I have 2 verses, and I have both of these down the middle, and that is intentional because I want to create kind of a thick vocal right down the center.
Water slips down my back, I'm a cold glass.
And then during my chorus, it all of a sudden gets really wide. My chorus has 3 main choruses, and one is right down the center, one is 50 right, and one is 50 left. It creates this wide spread. And this width that's created is accentuated by our verse being right down the center. This is a fun way to make your verse in your choruses more dynamic. And then I have my chorus harmonies right here. So I have 3 more. I have one down the center, 130 right, and 130-ish left. And then I have these other harmonies that are also middle, 50 left and 50 right, and 28 right and 28 left, and 11 right and 11 left. Let's hear how that sounds. We were on fire. We were on fire. Something I will say about vocal harmonies, and this has to do with keeping the lower stuff in the middle. I always put my lowest vocal harmonies more towards the center from like 30 in, and then push my higher vocals way out to the side. Like you'll see for these harmonies, we were on fire. They're relatively close. But then for the higher, later losers, we were on fire. Those are way out left and right. And then the middle ones, we were on fire, are also kind of like here and here. Let's hop over to another example and let's look at my drums. So I have my kick right down the center. And then I also have my snare down the middle, but this snare track right here, this is actually a resampling of this snare 1 right here. And snare 1 is actually 2 snares stacked on top of each other. And you'll see inside of my simpler that one is panned 2 to the right and one is panned 2 to the left. So they're essentially right down the center, but giving it just like a little bit more width and stepping off each other just a little bit. Okay, but let's talk about the percussion over here, because this is something I see a lot, is people having all of their drums right down the center. Drums are a great opportunity to spread out the stereo field. Let's listen to my percussion. So something you'll see is I have these 4 cymbals, and each one has a different panning, and I am panning within my simpler in the case of these guys. I can also pan within the chain if I wanted to, right here, but I just like panning in the simpler device. So I go into my controls. You can see this one is panned 41 to the left. The next one is panned 16 to the left. Next, we have 17 to the right. This also has some automation on it, but we'll get to that in a second. And then we have this 4th cymbal with 39 to the right. So shoomp, they're all across the stereo field and they're balancing each other out. Now, I also want to point out that within my simpler, I have this amazing option to do random panning. So right now I have random panning at 30%. And what that means is that it's gonna hit on the left side for the most part, but it's going to be in a slightly different area every time. And I like doing this with my hi-hats to just give it a little bit more interest, a little more dynamics, more dinosaurs. And so I did that for most of them, just gave them a little bit of random panning so that they're not super stagnant. Also, if I only have one hi-hat, I'll oftentimes just keep the panning down the center and then bring my random panning up from anywhere from 30 to 60. And then it kind of pops off in a different place every time and it sounds fun. It sounds like confetti. Okay, so let's talk about automation. Automation, amazing. Automation is movement over time. It's really helpful to be able to automate the panning of things as the song goes on, because as the song progresses, we have different instruments coming in and out, and we're gonna want our sounds to live in different spaces. So if I right click and show automation, you can see that I went from having this 17 right to going basically down the center. And the reason I do that is because during the verse, there's a lot of stuff happening. I have 4 cymbals that I'm balancing. But then during the pre-chorus, I only have this 1 cymbal going. And so I don't necessarily want it on the right side because I can make my song a little bit more even by keeping it down the middle, but adding some random pan to it. And remember, you can also automate the pan pots to have a really fast movement, right? If you have a cool like sound effect, like a zoom, I'll often like pan it from one side to the other so it goes whoom. Or also if I have like a tom roll or something, I will often do a left to right pan where it goes boom, 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 you know. Let's look at another example of automating our pan pots. So down here, I have this sound called big energy. And right now it is panned 13 to the left. And I panned it 13 to the left. That's not an intense pan at all. I could probably leave it there without balancing it on the other side with something else because it's not demanding a ton of my attention. It fits in very well with the song. But there's another sound in the track that has a relatively similar frequency. So what I'm doing is I'm panning this one to the left and I'm going to put the other one on the right. So if we go down here, I have the sound called Mellotron pad that is being pushed to the right now. And when we hear them together, they balance each other out. All right, that's all good and dandy, but then later in our track, I have another sound that comes in, and this other sound is chorus shimmer right here. In chorus shimmer and mellotron pad work so well together that I wanted them to balance each other out. They're in a very similar frequency range, very similar texture, similar pads. And so in this case, for this chorus, I have automated chorus shimmer to be 25 to the right and then mellotron pad 32 to the left. And again, it doesn't have to be exact, it's kind of general areas. And then I just keep big energy on 13 left here, and it's not a very intrusive sound. It's not throwing anything off, so it's very much fine. And not every single sound needs a balance. It's not like, oh no, I can't put this off to the side because there's nothing like it that'll go off to the right. But if it like sticks out at you, you probably do want something to counteract it. But there are also other ways that we can deal with sounds that don't really feel like they fit on the left or the right. Right? Either they're like a very bold sound or they're like a big pad, but you don't really want them right down the center because there's already a lot happening down the center. And one of my favorite tools for this is auto pan. So let's go ahead and grab an auto pan and drop her wherever. Here we are. All right, let's throw up the amount. And by the way, if you don't have Ableton, your DAW probably has an auto pan. And if it doesn't have an auto pan, I'm sure there are free auto pans online that you can download. So auto pan is fantastic if you want movement in your sounds, and also really great for when you have that sound when you're like, oh, I don't really think it works on the right. I don't really think it works on the left. I don't really want it in the middle. So I'll just kind of like put it everywhere. Now you can either do a very fast auto pan or you can do something slow. Also, you can switch it from hertz to this little note head button, and this will sync it to the tempo of the song. And then you're working with rate right here. So it's up to you whether you want your sound moving quickly back and forth or not, right? If it's something like a pad or something more like slow moving and you don't want it to draw a ton of attention, but you just want it to kind of be drifting, then keep it at a relatively low rate. Something more like 2 and above. If you want it significantly moving and people are going to notice it's moving, then anywhere from like, 1 to a quarter note or something. And then if you want it to be a very hectic sound, you're gonna make it even faster. So something you might do a fast auto pan on would be like a cool like arpeggiator that's like popping off, or hi-hats or something like that. Let's look at some examples now of where I'm using an auto pan. So I have this mandolin sound that's pretty major in the chorus. And I wanted it down the center because having it on the left or the right doesn't really make sense because it really is an important sound. But I also didn't want it too just like down the center, interfering with the vocals and the kick, etc. So what I did is I threw in a little bit of auto pan here, and it's pretty subtle. But it's a relatively slow moving rate, amount turned down, right? So it's not going all the way back and forth, right? This is what amount means. It's how much back and forth it moves. So just a little bit of amount, a little bit of rate, and it's just casually kind of gliding back and forth. Now I also have that for this dark swarm right here. And dark swarm is another sound that's very important. So I didn't really want to throw it way off to the side. It's also a pad. So like I wanted it to take up space, but I also didn't want to interfere too much with the other things going on. And so what I did for this one is I have a pretty slow moving auto pan. But what I did here, and this is one of my favorite techniques, is I paired it up with another sound, okay? I'm buddying it with this Omnisphere right here. Omnisphere has the exact same auto pan, exact same rate, about same amount, but it's inverted. And so whenever this dark swarm is on the left, Omnisphere is going to be on the right, and they're just going to swap places. So for both of these, I didn't really want them down the middle, but I didn't really want to just balance the song by putting one on the left and one on the right, right? Because they're relatively similar frequencies. We could just separate them like that, but I didn't really feel like either of them wanted to have their own side. They kind of wanted both sides. And it also just introduces some nice movement, right? Things are flowing, things are feeling groovy. So guys, I think that is all that I want to say about panning for now. I hope that now you're feeling confident that for every sound that you encounter in your project, you can listen to it in context, hear what else is happening, and make the best decision about where that sound's gonna go and how that sound is going to move over time. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, please drop a comment below. I would love to hear from you. And also like and subscribe if you want to help out my channel. Don't forget to download that cheat sheet below so you can refer to it when you are mixing. And happy mixing, y'all. Have fun. I love mixing. That's it for today. Bye, folks.